Temperate lakes and reservoirs. Physical factors. The principal physical factors that affect the distribution and abundance of fish in lakes are temperature, light, water movements, water level fluctuations, size, and substrate. Temperature. Fishery managers have long recognized that basic fish fauna or lakes is determined in a large part by temperature. Thus, they have tended to divide lakes into three basic types. First, cold water lakes, in which the dominant sport or commercial fishes are salmonids. 2. Warm waters lakes, in which the dominant sport or commercial fishes are centraludes or black bases and sunfishes, persids or perch and wally or isocedes or pike, and persithides or white, yellow, and striped bases. And last, two-story lakes with warm water fishes in the warm upper layer or epilimnion, and cold water fishes in the cold deep water or hypolimnion. Next, light. Light has many rather subtle effects on fish distribution patterns both within and between lakes. Most warm water lakes are rather turbid, so the typical deep water fishes are species that do not rely on vision for prey capture, such as catfish, carp, and suckers. Water movements. Steady and predictable currents, such as those in the oceans, seldom occur in natural lakes, yet the movement of water by winds can have considerable impact on fish distribution within the lake. A series of days with wind blow from one direction can cause zooplankton to concentrate along the leeward shore. This may result in concentration of zooplankton feeding fishes as well. The distribution of larva fishes that drift in the surface waters of a lake may be quite patchy because of temporary gears and currents created by winds, although these same currents also concentrate the zooplankton on which the larval fish feed. Next, water level fluctuations. Water level fluctuations are primarily a problem to fish in reservoirs and lakes with regulated water levels. In natural lakes, however, flooded shoreline marshes are important spring spawning sites for fish such as northern pike or Exus lucius. Later in the year, emergent vegetation serves as a cover for the young of many species, such as largemouth bass and common carp. Drops in water level also may create barriers to migrations by lake-dwelling species that spawn in streams. Next, size. The three aspects of lake size particularly affect on both the number of species and the total fish productions in lakes. Number 1, surface area. Number 2, mean depth and shoreline length. The relationship of surface area to a number of species is not strong because so many other factors, especially zoogeographic factors, can affect the numbers of species. And last, substrate. It is quite difficult to relate the overall distribution pattern of any dwelling species to the presence of particular kind of substrate. Nevertheless, substrate does have a strong influence on fish distribution with a lake, especially for spawning. For example, spawning sunfishes and black bases are centracidae, require areas that are soft enough for digging a nest depression but firm enough that the embryos will not smother in mud, sculpins, or catidae, darters, or persidae, and some minnows or cyprinidae lay their eggs on the underside of overhanging rocks or logs. Yellow perch or perseverance and many minnows scattered adhesive eggs over beds of aquatic plants. Lake trout lay their eggs in the deep water among concentrations of boulders. Chemical factors. Number 1, gases. The only dissolved gas in lake water that exerts a major direct effect on fish distribution is oxygen. Although carbon dioxide is indirectly important to fish through the bicarbonate cycle and the relationship of this cycle to primary production. Primary production. It is the main source of oxygen in lakes, although the action of winds and waves is an important secondary source. The absence of these two sources of oxygen, combined with the removal of oxygen through decay of organic matter, is the reason that major fish eats occur in shallow, ice-covered lakes during the winter. And ions. The influence of dissolved ions on the distribution of lake-dwelling fishes is complex, because the concentrations of the various ions in a lake affect not only the fish but also every other organism that is present. Moreover, the chemistry of lakes water is related to that of the surrounding rocks, soil, and plant communities, so broad relationships between fish distribution and lake chemistry may be the result, at least in part, of geographic coincidence.
Temporal factors. The composition of the fish fauna in most lakes rarely is constant. It is likely to change as a lake ages, as the climate fluctuates from year to year, as the abundance of species changes from season to season, and as fish engage in daily movements. Long-term changes. Long-term changes in the fish faunas of lakes are poorly documented. They are, however, inevitable because the chemistry of lakes changes with the accumulations of nutrients and other ions from the surrounding land, and the physical environment change with the accumulation of sediments. A gradual addition of species also is likely as species enter lakes through outers or inlets. Actually, the types of changes that are likely to occur naturally in lakes can be understood more or less through the study of lakes that have been truly affected by humans through cultural eutrophication and the introduction of exotic species. Climatic fluctuations. Changes in climate are likely to cause fluctuations in the composition of fish fauna, mainly as a result of their effect on water temperatures and lake levels. Most fish have limited ranges of temperatures at which they will spawn. If these temperatures are not reached, spawning will not occur. If they are reached late in the season, the embryos and larvae may face larger populations of small, predatory fish. In either case, reproductive failures is likely, and the species, or at least the year class, is likely to be less abundant in the future. Next is seasonal changes. Seasonal changes in the fish fauna of lakes are related to a combination of reproductive and seasonable movements. The major species in lakes tend to reproduce at different times, with results in a definite succession of planktonic larvae in the open waters of lakes during the summer as well as a succession of abundance of juvenile fishes at the inshore areas. Many adult and juvenile fish make seasonal migrations to different depths or parts of lakes, thereby resulting in a seasonally changing species composition in some habitats, particularly inshore areas. Daily changes. The activity patterns of most lake fish are skewed to like so stringly differences can be found in the distribution of fish within a jelly according to the time of day. Vision-oriented predators are most active during the day, often with peaks of feeding in the morning and every evening hours. When invertebrates become more available, zooplankton are moving upward, benthic insects start become active, and flights of terrestrial and aquatic insect adults increases. Next is predation. Predation by fish is a major factor influencing the composition of biotic communities in lakes, from plants through invertebrates to fish. Grazing and rotting about by fish, particularly common carp, can influence greatly the amount and species of aquatic plants growing on lake bottom, as well as the species and numbers of invertebrates that are associated with the plants. Competition. Fish in lakes, like those in streams, show a consideration degree of ecological segregation. Although this segregation can be explained in part by difference in body morphology, the coexistence of similar closely related species in lakes is common. Fish populations in lakes probably are most constant in general than those in streams, but nevertheless, considerable year-to-year and season-to-season variation occurs in species composition. In addition, food and habitat show considerable variation in availability from season to season. Symbiosis. Examples of symbiotic effects on fish communities in lake are few, possibly because they often have not been solved. It is common to find different species schooling with each other, presumably forming mutualistic or commensal association.
My topic is all about biological factors. Like the stream fish, lake fish are quite flexible in their living arrangement with other species of animals and plants, particularly other fish. These arrangements are best examined under the general headings of predation, competition, and symbiosis. Predation and predation by fish is a major factor influencing the composition of biotic communities in lakes, from plants through invertebrates to fish. Grazing and rooting about by fish, particularly common carp, can influence greatly the amount and species of aquatic plants growing on lake bottom, as well as the species and numbers of invertebrates that are associated with the plants. In competition, fish in lakes like those in streams show a considerable degree of ecological segregation, although this segregation can be explained in part by differences in body morphology. The coexistence of similar closely related species in lakes is common. Fish population in lakes probably are more constant in general than those in streams, but nevertheless considerable year-to-year and season-to-season variations occur in species composition. In addition, foods and hobbies that show considerable variation and availability from season to season. Symbiosis. Example of symbiotic effects on fish communication in lakes are few, possibly because they often have not been called. It is common to find different species calling with each other, presumably forming mutualistic or commensal associations. Zoogeographic factors. Zoogeographic factors are barriers to fish dispersa are major determinants of fish faunas of lakes. The closer a lake is or was a major river system, the more species likely are the present lakes with long stretches upstream, especially high gradient stretches between them and a major river or other lakes are likely to contain only the same fishes that are found in the headwater streams or derivatives of them such as throat-suckers, dace, and chubs. That's all and thank you.
Fish zones. The designation of fish zone is lakes in even more arbitrary than is streams because lake fish are comparatively free to move from one zone to another. Fish is lakes, whatever, do tend to sort themselves out along environmental gradients during the summer months, when mass individual and population growth occurs. As a result, distinct cluster of species tend to be associated with the broad habitat types within lakes. And these associations can be described as fish zones. Within each fish zone, the species tend to segregate further by microhabitat and food preference. As example of these patterns, the zone is two lakes will be described here: small two-story lake, long lake, and large cold water lake. Long lake. This lake is north central Minnesota is somewhat usual for its bottom lake like morphology, depth and speed side, as well as for its charity. These same factors, however, result in sharp environmental gradients and easily observable fish zone. Four zones are recognized in the lake. Number 1. First, the shallow water zone. Second, the aquatic plant zone. Third, the deep water zone. And fourth, the open water zone. The shallow water zone occurs in water less than 1 meter deep as is strongly influenced by wave action. The aquatic zone is characterized by dense bands of mixed species of aquatic plant that are between and 9 meter deep. The bins are thickets and most diverse at depths between 2 and 3 meter and population of the 6 months abundant species are the desert here. The deep water zone is found below the low limits of the aquatic plant bins and below the epilemium. Thus, it's cold, dark, and salty bottom. The open water zone, which is away from the influence of the bottom, is characterized by large schools and juvenile perch and by all size classes of walleye. The walleye generally move inshore to feed during the evening. Lake Ta. This lake is a large surface area, 304 km deep, mean deep 313 meter. Unclear, the bottom is visible of 20 to 30 meter. Mountain Lake on the California-Nevada border. The 6 negative fish species that now are characteristic of the lake also are found in the local streams. Originally, the mean piscivore in the lake was cutthroat trout, but it has been replaced by lake trout. Rainbow trout are brown trout. In addition, kokanee salmon have been added to the fauna. The lake can be divided into 3 broadly overlapping zones. First is the shallow water zone. Second is the deep water benthic zone. And the third is the midwater zone. Reservoirs. Reservoirs are treated separately in this chapter because they emphatically are not. Although they are often labeled and as such, they share species with lakes and are big, open bodies of water, but they behave very differently. Those used mainly for power production often for our lakes giant riverine pokes than lakes because of the high turnover rate of the water. Those used mainly for water supply typically have strong seasonal functions in deep an area, which prevent the establishment of bins of aquatic plant and other types of fish habitat. The fluctuating condition on short and long times scales confer considerable instability on reservoir fish assemblies. Each species, however, generally is most characteristic of one of the zone. First, the inshore zone. Second, the open water zone. And the third is the deep water benthic zone. Thank you.